Phil, as you've led our team, there are things that I would say that just are natural leadership lessons that you've really gravitated towards, taken a hold of, even coined as your own. And I'd love to ask you about one of them specifically, about expectations and clarity. Give us the one-liner, and then talk to us about what that actually means or how we can apply that to our leadership.
Yeah, it's really a paradigm coaching phrase. It's unspoken expectations are premeditated resentment. And that really just means, as leaders, one of our primary functions is to set expectations and verbalize those expectations, make them challenging but attainable, but be clear on that. So if you have expectations, if I have expectations of you and I haven't spoken those or communicated those, then the minute I have them and you don't know about them, there's potential seeds of resentment that come because you're not doing what I think you should be doing. You might sense that. There's a level of frustration both ways. You may receive behavior that you don't understand because you didn't. So I think it's just a good paradigm, and it's one we use in coaching to say, like, how clearly have we set expectations? Is there a timeline? Is there a definition and a clarity to it?
Right. Greg, as we talk about that practically, how do you articulate those expectations to make sure that somebody is both accomplishing what is expected of them, and then there's also just clarity of how to do my role well?
Yeah, I think as simply and directly as you can up front, we can use things like a job description in the beginning of a relationship that state everything up front. You know exactly what you're agreeing to. Yeah. We have something that we can stand on from this point forward. But the reality is expectations need to be reiterated along the way. Things can drift, things can change, the nature of a role can change, the nature of the team or the environment can change. Yeah. So it needs to be constantly revisited. And this is why we're big advocates of one-on-ones when it comes to a leader and direct report relationship, having a regular check-in point where we're going to sit down, we're going to talk about how things are going, how you're doing, how you're performing. This shouldn't be a big surprise. We shouldn't have to wait till a year-end performance evaluation or something like that to remind you of the expectations that you may or may not be hitting. It should be a constant process. And to me, when it comes to setting expectations or correcting expectations, it kind of reminds me of when I'm driving a car and I'm going down the road. And when you're driving, you're making all these tiny little, almost imperceptible corrections in your steering so that your car doesn't fly off the side of the road. And they're small and they're painless and they keep you going the way you want to go. But if you don't make all those small little corrections along the way, eventually you're going to have to make one massive jarring correction that's going to be painful, that might flip your car, that might destroy a relationship. Right. And it could have been avoided if we just had those little conversations along the way.
Yeah, that's really good. One-on-ones, that's a big vehicle to do a lot of these minor corrections. Some people are in the habit of doing it, some people aren't. What would you recommend some good habits for one-on-ones?
Yeah, I think it's probably the greatest tool for development that everybody can do that's extremely practical. And if you do it over and over, again, it can have a great result over time. And I think the basics of it are make sure you have a process to do it, keep the process simple, have a regular time that you really honor, and whether it be once a week or at the most every other week that you're spending time. And I think the other thing is the paradigm of I'm calling you in and there should be an expectation that it's your meeting to have access to me. What do you need from a resource,
permission? That's honestly how we've kind of developed our one-on-ones. Is I come in and I say, hey, if this is my time with you, then I'm going to make sure that we're having that time. Right. I can't let you just not schedule it. It's actually, I'm the one driving it and saying, and if it's not frequent enough, I say, hey, I'm going to need to catch some time with you because I can't move this project forward, or I need your advice on this. And it's not always permission. Sometimes it's just advice. Like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, tell me what you're thinking, or help me navigate.
You even have a name for that, don't you?
Name blank, for yes, yeah. This is always a great way to determine whether or not you're leveraging your one-on-one, right, is the blank sheet test. So if you're a supervisor and you have your direct report coming into their meeting and they have a blank sheet and they're like, all right, boss, tell me what to do. We're not leading them right because they think it's your meeting with them and they're supposed to give you stuff to do for next week, which in reality, if they did that last week, there's no update, there's no progress report. So which means you have to have your list of your to-dos in your mind, and you have to have their list of their to-dos in your mind also. And that's just, what am I paying you for? Like, what are you supposed to be doing? So having that responsibility almost transferred to the direct report to drive that meeting, I think is so valuable, so helpful. But we also have 3 questions that we ask because some people are like, all right, how do I structure this one-on-one? What are those 3 questions? How does that help guide a 30-minute, 45-minute, even an hour one-on-one?
Yeah, the 3 questions. How are you doing? So just starting with a personal check-in, make sure you're good. Because if you're not good, if something's off in your life or at home, I got to know that.
Yeah.
Because that may mean we need to set aside the work stuff for a minute so we can have that conversation, so I can figure out how to support you. But I'm going to check in personally. I'm going to ask, how can I help? So if I'm the leader, I need to always have this open door where if there's something I can remove from being in your way of getting your job done, whether that's signing off on, budget approval, making a decision you're waiting on, giving you a perspective that you need before you can make your decision. These are all the different ways I can help as a leader. And then the third would be, what are you working on? So that's the opportunity to stay updated, make sure we're informed, make sure we're on the same page. And then as a leader, that also gives me the opportunity to speak in and give feedback if I feel like I need to course correct you on anything.
I like that because that does, again, gives me a paradigm, but I can drive those questions up, those agenda topics up. I think we all have our agendas that are kind of designed the same way, but then there are a few things, and maybe as a supervisor, I'm like, oh, this came up. I want to check in with you on that, but same things happens too. Yeah. Having a place where you have that shared agenda helps drive some of those action items afterwards. It's a great way to, again, create clear expectations so it avoids any unspoken expectations, and which leads to resentment.
Yeah, you're really good at bringing kind of, this is what I'm thinking about, these are the questions I have, this is the heads ups I have with me and over the years. Is there anything that you would, want to talk about that you think about or do in preparation for that? How do you put yourself in that place where I feel like you ask great questions, you drive us through, I never feel like you're trying to drive me to a place, but I also don't feel like I ever have to spend a bunch of time prepping because you're coming in talking about the right things
that's good.
And asking the right questions.
I think there's a couple of filters I have. First and foremost, how much time do we have? And then I also know you. I've been a student of my leader, and so I know, hey, you're very relational, and one of your strengths is connectedness. So there's probably a lot of things that happen. If we haven't met in a while, there probably is a lot of things that happened that you want to talk about that are interconnected to some of the things that maybe we're working on. So I've got to put in some time. And at first I was like, early on, not recently. I was like,
this is the honest part of the program.
Just get to my list? But I realized how important it was to follow your train of thought, again, to be ready for what might be coming in the horizon. So one, I would need to know, how long has it been since we last met? Because that determines how much time I need to put up front for us to connect relationally. And then I prioritize based on the time that we have, what's most important or what's going to take some time for us to actually discuss. And I like to say, hey, this is a discussion, or either I just label them. It's a discussion for us to have, or it's a decision for you to make. It's for me just to debrief. They don't all start with D's, but most of them do. And then what ideas, didn't start with a D, but it's got one in there. What ideas do I want to kind of pitch to you and brainstorm and let you just kind of think over? We don't actually have to do anything about it. I just want it to be on your radar. I like to call that dripping.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the D.
Another D.
There it
It's
is.
The last D.
Okay. So those are some of the thought process I have as I'm heading up to ours. But if we don't get to 2 or 3 of those, guess what? They stay on my list for next time we meet, or you and I say, hey, we're going to have to meet a little bit later because some of these are time sensitive. So thanks for being flexible in how you do that, because I think sometimes it's not always a leader's first priority. But when you're progress is the progress of your team, then I feel like it's the only priority. So.